away, he's in charge. And the secretary to the government, and then the chief of staff. So no problem.
Some Nigerians are expressing doubts regarding the ability of your party to conduct its national convention successfully. What will you tell them?
Well, they should wait and see how do we come as a party to take power from the ruling party who had been there before us for so many years. So we have the capacity. Everything will be all right.
The fourth batch of the 206 Nigerians fleeing from the war in Ukraine has arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, from Budapest, Hungary. New reports that the evacuees arrived via Air Peace Airline at 12:35 a.m. on Sunday. The stranded Nigerians were successfully evacuated following the intervention of the federal government with the cooperation of the government of the countries neighboring Ukraine. Welcoming the returnees on behalf of the federal government, Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, Mustafa Ahmed, said that President Muhammadu Buhari has approved $100 to be given to each of them. Still from Ukraine-Russia crisis, some stranded Nigerians who fled to Ukraine to Poland have appreciated the federal government for its effort in ensuring their safe and successful evacuation to Nigeria. The reports.
The evacuees who narrated their terrible ordeal while trying to flee Ukraine appreciated the federal government and its mission in Poland for all the arrangements. Eniola, a student from Ukraine, appreciated the government's efforts but appealed for more information and better coordination as the exercise continued.
We are so stressed, but we thank them too, but we'd like them to do better and give us more information because we're not giving so much information. We'd also like them to be more organized the next time. We don't pray something like this happens, but in case of the case, we'd always want them to be organized because many of us are really stressed. I'm just happy to be returning back to my family because I really need to see them. I feel happy and grateful that at least I can go back and see my parents.
Joseph Chikado, another student who left Ukraine, said what was most important to him was his successful crossing from Ukraine into Poland amidst all the challenges as he looked forward to returning to Nigeria.
It was a very rough experience trying to get past the borders because of the weather. Firstly, the weather was very bad, it was very cold, and we had to walk very, very long distance, no vehicles to convey us to the border. We got there pretty late, so we had to sleep there in the cold. We had to find ways to warm ourselves, and when we got forward, about to cross, we were sent back by the border guards.
Kela Wengu, a student of Dnipro Medical Institute, Ukraine, said she was lucky to be on the flight, explaining that the cancelled flight of March 3rd.
I'm coming here. I don't know how I got here actually because I was going to miss this flight. I didn't go to the embassy yesterday to write my name down and all. I got here and I was told that the plane was filled up and all. I waited just so, if any opportunity arises.
Nigerian's ambassador to Poland, Christian Ogu, appreciated President Muhammadu Buhari for his swift intervention and release of funds to get all stranded Nigerians in Ukraine back home.
We've been trying our possible best to convince the Nigerian students that there is need for them to get back to the country than remaining in Poland, to constitute a nuisance. That the federal government is trying their possible best to make them comfortable. And that is why they have made provision for them to be well accommodated in hotels and provided aircraft to convey them back home. For those who refused to, go, I think that they will be remaining at their own risk.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs explained the March 3rd flight was cancelled due to delay in getting all the intending evacuees together from their respective hotels.
The reason is because of the delay in doing the check-in, because they have to gather them together from different hotels, and by the time we will be ready after the check-in, the crew that have been waiting since 9 a.m. had overshot the hour they should have waited, because they have a duty hour.
Now, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has suspended the restriction of direct flight from Nigeria and 16 other countries. Also, the Saudi government has scrapped the major COVID-19 restriction, except wearing of masks in the two holy mosques in Mecca and Medina, as well as other places of worship in the kingdom. The directive, issued by Saudi Arabian Ministry of Interior and confirmed by Saudi Embassy in Nigeria, became effective from March 5, 2022. According to the new policy, citizens visiting the kingdom will no longer require to undergo mandatory COVID-19 quarantine or present PCR test result upon arrival in the Holy Land. However, the new directives compelled all new travelers to Saudi Arabia to secure an insurance and covers the cost of treatment from coronavirus infections. The Chief Observer, European Union Election Observation Mission, Marie Arena, has described the 2022 Electoral Act as a great achievement for deepening of Nigeria electoral process. Arena said this at news conference in Abuja while presenting the mission's final report on Nigeria's 2019 general election. Arena said that the EU election followed up missions noted the progress with the new law and INEC reforms, but also stressed the need for further actions.
Of the 30 recommendations we made in 19, at this time we consider 11 to be partially implemented and 2 to be implemented. This includes 3 of the mission's priority 7 recommendations. They relate to result collation procedures, result transparency, and improving access to remedy. These progress are encouraging. The passing of the new Electoral Act is a very positive step forward. The new Act comprehensively introduces a range of measures that improve the election process. It is impressive how the National Assembly, INEC, and civil society worked together on this. It is a big achievement that paves the way for improvement in future electoral processes. Also impressive are the steps that INEC has taken, most notably in uploading polling unit results in real time so everyone can see what has been recorded. This is a major advance, making the election process more transparent. INEC has also made more information public on its website and is meeting regularly with stakeholders. These and other actions are really encouraging. However, there are very real challenges ahead for INEC. It needs to improve its operations with better planning, logistics, and oversight. This is necessary to avoid the shortcomings seen in recent elections, which can put people off taking part in elections. Another serious challenge is the introduction of new technology for the accreditation of voters in polling units. We urge INEC to do a comprehensive lessons learned exercise in the use of BVAS and to have an independent evaluation of their use and to develop a full plan accordingly.
Hi, my name is Ikia Marton. Being an anchor has been a tremendous experience, from editing the news to reading the news. As an anchor, you have to be objective and impartial. Sometimes you have to put on a very indifferent look, a stoic character, such that you do not display your emotions. but then the stories that we tell, from politics to the economy to insecurity to education, also affect us. And as journalists, we're also affected by stories. From the teleprompter to the lights to the camera to the action to the reading of the news, it's all a synchronization of various activities at the same time. Sometimes you have to listen to feedback, sometimes you have to stop, sometimes you have to continue. Sometimes, you know, there are technical hitches that we can never overlook, but then you have to come up with a strategy, you have to come up with your professionalism to ensure that the audience do not even know what is happening behind the scenes, and then you just have to carry on.
Now, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike has encouraged women to make use of 2022 International Women's Day celebration coming up next week, Tuesday, to protest the National Assembly's rejection of 5 gender bills. The National Assembly had on the Tuesday, while voting on 68 Constitution Amendment Bill, rejected 5 gender bills. This sparked off protests by women groups who occupied the National Assembly the following day. Wike issued the charge during the civic reception organized in the honor by Ekpeye ethnic nation at St. Peter's Catholic Church, Field Anoada town in Anoada East local government area.
Feel the spirit, feel the rhythm. It is a moment for worship and praise, a time to connect with the Lord. Right here on Gospel Light, I bring to your home screens everything the gospel, from musical countdowns to having your favorite gospel artist right here on the program, and as well reporting any gospel event around your area.
You are the strength of my life.
Well, I feel blessed and privileged.
Enquiries for sponsorship for advertisement, do contact us on our email at gospellight.ng@gmail.com. You can as well follow us on our social media platform on Instagram at gospellight.ng, and you can also contact us on 081-3216-1451. Do remain blessed.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Newslive on Viewer Television. Now the recap of our top stories. Another batch of 306 Nigerians in Ukraine arrived Abuja from Hungary. Saudi Arabia lifts bans on Nigeria and scraps mandatory COVID-19 quarantine. Plus, flood ravaged Eastern Australian and braces for more wild weather. Now, the Initiative for Food Security and Ecosystem Preservations and Citizens Climate Lobby Abuja has urged the federal government to ensure effective implementation of the Climate Change Act. David Torungwa, Executive Director of the GSEF, said although President Muhammadu Buhari signed the Climatic Change Bill into law in 2021, more needed to be done by the federal government and relevant stakeholders.
The fact is that the problem is here with us. In Mozambique, in Zambia, just a few months ago, we know what happened. These countries need resources. We need to adapt. We need to build resilience. And we cannot do this without money. They must fulfill their promises. And it is with this money that we can do energy transition. It is with this money that we can do climate smart agricultural practices.
Yahya Dangana Group leader Citizen Climate Lobby said that the law signed by the president is yet to be implemented speedily. Dangana said that the relevant issues affecting climate change were in the bill, and the essence of signing the bill into law was to address the climate change impacts.
That law, the Climate Change Act 2021, is the most beautiful bride in Nigeria for now. Why? Because all the issues affecting the environment and climate change, adaptation, resilience, mitigation, and any other thing were all provided for there. It has aims and objective. We appreciate the sponsor of that bill and the members of the legislation for coming up with the final draft that was appended signature to by the president. We are craving, we are pleading with the president to please, having signed this law, to give effect to it by constituting the council, by appointing a director general that will head the secretariat, by appointing all the regional coordinators that will work as the feeders to the national secretariat as provided for.
Professor Shaibu Hassan, Director, Center for Environmental Studies, University of Abuja, said that an effective measure to address climate change impact was to develop a robust policy to maintain group surroundings.
Many people prepare the land not the way they should by using herbicides to clear the grasses. You use herbicides to kill the land. Herbicide there will not kill only the herbs, but including the insects. And the insects there are supposed to help you aerate the soil. Now, the mechanism for nature to make the nutrient available is gone. You have to apply chemical fertilizer. Chemical fertilizer you are adding is adding salt to injury. Because some of us don't even carry our soil test to know what is required. Is it the urea or the potassium in the fertilizer you are adding? All you know is that put NPK. And NPK, sometimes the soil may not require nitrogen anymore. And you are adding nitrogen. What will happen to your crops? They will grow stunted, turning yellow because nitrogen is too high.
The federal government has expressed worry over loss of 13 billion hectares of Africa's land to agriculture every year. Sharon Okazo, Minister of State for Environment, who was represented by Segir El Mohammed, Director of Press at the ministry, said that the meeting was a national stakeholders platform on degraded forests and landscape restoration. Hassan Musa, Permanent Secretary of the ministry, who was represented by Charles Ikea, Director Erosion and Pollution Control in the ministry, said about AFR 100 was established to reverse degradation in the forest and landscape.
Soil fertility, biodiversity, and climate change. More than 70% of all natural ecosystems have been transformed to produce food and animal feeds. Illegal logging is threatening forests worldwide, home to several indigenous people, communities, and wildlife. Desertification, land degradation induced by deforestation, overgrazing, bush burning, and mining activities, among others,
in the country.
The AFR 100 stakeholder platform would create awareness, promote sustainable practices, serve as a framework for the exchange of experiences, sharing of results, and dissemination of information on restoration activities in the country. It would also present an opportunity for public and private sectors to demonstrate large-scale transformative action to restore degraded land.
The Lagos State Commissioner of Police, Abiodun Alabi, has ordered the arrest of people involved in the distribution of petrol as souvenir at a party in the state. The State Police Public Relations Officer, CSP Adekunle Ijesebutu, confirmed the development in a statement. He said, in spite of series of warning and sensitization carried out by the police and other relevant government agencies, some individuals could be handling such combustible substance in a public place in total regard to the safety of lives and properties. Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Projects has asked President Muhammadu Buhari to direct the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, SAN, and anti-corruption agencies to probe the spending on the country's 4 refineries. The organization also asked the president to order a probe into the alleged corruption and mismanagement of public money budgeted for rehabilitation and operation maintenance of refineries since 1999. Failure to do so, Serap, in a statement on Sunday, threatened to sue the president. The statement quoted Serap Deputy Director Kolawole Olawadari as saying this in a letter dated March 5, 2022, and sent to President Buhari and the Minister of Justice, Malami. The Department of Justice of the United States of America has declined comments on the planned extradition of suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari. The Justice Department, however, reiterated that Kyari is facing charges filed in 2021, which led to his indictment, adding that though he will be offered a legal representation in the U.S. in an email to an inquiry sent by newsman Tom Mosek. The Director of the Media Relations of the United States Attorney General's Office said, "We will not have any comments in relation to the pending extradition request for any defendant." Newsmen had reported that Kyari was suspended in July 2021 by the Inspector General of Police, Usman Baba, for allegedly involvement in a $1.1 million internet fraud allegedly perpetrated by Hush Puppy and 4 other Abdul Rahman, Juma Abdul, Vincent Chibuzo Kelly, Rukayat Fashola Murayo, and Bola Titu Adegba Chiaka Bolamide. Institution of Human Virology Nigeria has advised the federal government to convert the COVID-19 pandemic isolation centers across the country to emergency infectious disease centers for future outbreaks. The Chief Executive Officer of the institution, Dr. Patrick Dakum, gave the advice in Abuja on Sunday. Newsmen report that an isolation unit ensures that healthcare staff and the centers are equipped to deal with infectious disease outbreak. In the wake of the COVID-19 crisis, the federal government, with the intervention of the Coalition Against COVID-19 and other partners, improvised and created the best possible equipment isolation centers across the country. The AIG Omokode Foundation is set to train 3,000 public sector workers in public leader program over the next 30 years. Chairman AIG Omokode Foundation said that the foundation was driven by the need to close the unacceptable gap between Africa and the other continents in terms of standard living and the future prospects.
Have a goal, actually, that over the next 30 years, we would have trained at least 3,000 Nigerian public servants at the highest level of executive education available for public sector workers. And as you can see, just yesterday, 50 Nigerians graduated from Oxford University's flagship executive education public leaders program. Our people, the people we know, the Nigerians we know what we can do. Nigeria will take its pride of place and that gap will be closed.
Chairman AIG Omokode Foundation, Simon Harris, said that the collaboration was timely because of the NBS and recently collaborated with some other governmental agencies to try to assess performance of the public sector.
At Omokode Foundation to please increase its partnership with MBS so that together we can continue to throw the challenge and then ask those handling the affairs of government to always do the needful. So I want to sincerely appreciate you for this initiative, and for us, I can assure you on behalf of the board and management of the National Bureau of Statistics that we will do everything possible to justify the confidence that you have in MBS as a partner to work with, so that at the end of it all, the proposal for which this collaboration was entered into will be achieved, at least for the progress and the development of the
Statistician General of the Federation at the signing of Fovue, AIG Omokode, said that organization focus was in transforming the public sector for better service delivery.
Now, if you look at the countries that are performing well, you will notice that there's a correlation between the performance of their public sector and the outcomes for their citizens. So our focus with this index is to assess the performance of our public sector. What is it that is being done? Why are the outcomes so poor for our people? Because if you do not measure, you cannot improve. Now, if you look at more developed countries, citizen engagement is a key driver of government accountability. Accountability is one of the things that we need in this country, because when the government is accountable to its citizens, it has an incentive to actually do.
Now, Abdulrazak Namdas, an APC governorship candidate in Adamawa State, believes that no nation or state can flourish, prosper, until its youths are educated, completely empowered. On Saturday, Namdas announced his after unveiling his governorship campaign office in Mubi. The reports.
Activities in the ancient town of Mubi briefly came to a halt as mammoth crowd of supporters, party faithful, and associates received Adamawa's foremost gubernatorial hopeful, Honorable Abdulrazak Namdas, who was in the town to launch his campaign office ahead of the 2023 general election. The supporters then escorted the gubernatorial hopeful to the palace of the Emir of Mubi. Shortly after launching the pen office, Numbers, who addressed the mouth crowd, said he was in the race to turn around the fortune of the state, noting that he had a magic wand to bring rapid social development to the state.
Have a vocational institute that was so constructed, initiated, established by the former government. These how many billions was spent on that money. Today, all the equipments have been stolen out. Now, I will do my best to bring this back because until you engage our youth, until you give them quality education, you're not likely to move forward. All this is terrorism, brainwashing of people as a result of lack of quality education, and that's why I want to help and do that.
He noted that one of his priority projects in Mubi is to rejuvenate the state university, which is still crawling more than 20 years after its establishment.
That this zone is blessed with a state university that was established 20 years ago when I was also in government that time, Governor Bodi Haruna. And this university has helped the people of this zone, the country, and the state at large. But the truth is that we are yet to get the full potential of this university. We don't have a faculty of medicine, we don't have a faculty of engineering, we also don't have pharmaceuticals, faculty of pharmacy and what have you.
He expressed joy for the overwhelming reception he received in the town, even though he only came to open his campaign office. High point of the event were the donations of 700,000 naira by Numbers to an indigent patient who has been grappling with a life-threatening ailment for over 17 years, and the presentation of awards on Numbers by the youth in Mubi. Pressy Dabang, Viewer Television News, Yola.
The international scene, Orleans town stated by deadly flooding over the past week, prepared for further intense weather Sunday, with expected downpours halting volunteers' recovery and clean-up efforts. The National Weather Bureau warned of severe thunderstorms and major flooding in the state of Queensland, where 11 people died in the past weeks. Flash floodings is the forecast for the major city of Brisbane, home to 2.6 million people. Heavy rains, large hailstorms, and damaging winds were also expected to hit further south in the state of New South Wales, including the towns of the Lismore, which last week saw records, and floodings and dramatic rescue efforts to save the residents and stranded on their roofs. The International Monetary Fund said it will bring Ukraine requests for $1.4 billion in emergency financing to its executive board as early as next week. Countries with close economic ties to Russia are also at risk for shortage and supply of disruptions. It is talks with neighboring Moldova for aid options after a meeting Friday led by the managing director of Kristalina Georgieva and the IMF said that were serious economic consequences in the region. Energy, wheat prices have surged, adding to the effects of the inflation from the pandemic and global supply chain disruptions. Now, 5 soldiers have been killed by a mines in Niger southwest Toradi region where jihadists attacked using improvised explosive device, IEDs, were increasingly frequent in the defense ministry said on Sunday. 3 soldiers were wounded in the blast when an army patrol vehicle ran over the IED. The ministry said in a statement the troops were part of the 2,106-strong NIA anti-jihadist force set up in February in southwest near the border with Burkina Faso. Since 2017, Western Niger has been regularly targeted by Islamist groups despite the deployment of thousands of anti-jihadist troops and the impositions of the state of emergency. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Sunday he spoke by phone with his U.S. counterpart Joe Biden to discuss financial support and sanctions against Russia as his country faces an intensifying onslaught. In a read out on the half-hour called the White House, emphasized steps in its administration and allies have taken to raise the cost on Russia for its aggression in Ukraine. He said also highlights efforts by the private companies such as payment giants Visa and MasterCard to freeze out Moscow by suspending operations in the wake of the February 24 invasion. Hours earlier, the Ukrainian leader had addressed U.S. lawmaker by video call, pleading for further assistance to his besieged country and a blacklisting of Russia oil imports. Weapons, ammunition, and funds have poured into Ukraine from Western allies, which have also imposed sweeping sanctions on Moscow. And that's all on Newslive, but before we go, a recap of our headlines. Another batch of 306 Nigerians in Ukraine arrived at Abuja from Hungary. Saudi Arabia lifts ban on Nigeria scraps mandatory COVID-19 quarantine. Plus, flood ravaged eastern Australia and braces for more wild weather. Many thanks for watching. I'm John Martike. Please stay tuned and enjoy the rest of our programs. Good night.
Full of innuendos and lies and misinformation, and we cannot at every turn address such things. As important as this is, it has the potential of distracting us and wasting the time of the House. We've just spent 15 minutes listening to your wonderful and heartfelt presentation, and I hope that those who practice yellow journalism will take note of the things you have said. This House will not be distracted. These guys out there do more harm than good, and they seek to do nothing but sow discord between partners in government, but we will not bow to such. Like you rightly said, this House has we've brought up motions, and the records are there, that even affect personal friends of mine and personal friends of other people here on the floor. Our motions on the floor are not based on relationships. We swore to the Constitution to do only those things that will uphold us as a nation, and that's what we will continue to do. Unfortunately, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But we will not allow this to distract us. Let them continue to practice their journalism the way they know how to. But I believe Nigerians are discerning enough to be able to shift, to be able to separate truth from what we now know as fake news. So thank you very much, Honorable Luke. Yes, the Leader of the House.
I remain Honorable Ado Dogwa, representing the good people of Dogwa, Chudunwada Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, like you all know, I am from the commercial nerve center of the northern part of the country, Kano. Mr. Speaker, I rise not only to add my voice to the very beautiful presentations made by Right Honorable Luke. Mr. Speaker, I rise to reinstate. Mr. Speaker, I rise to identify and consolidate the remarks you made following his personal explanation. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the point he presented was not a personal explanation as an individual. I think the point he raised here and the comment he also made must have to be seen from the perspective of the institutional existence of the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, I rise here today as leader of this honorable House, the 9th House of Representatives, which you proudly lead. That this kind of activities, actions and inactions by the so-called our colleagues in the media, I am proudly a media man. I am proudly a media man, and I repeat, I'm a media man. This kind of actions and inactions that have been deliberately perpetuated against institutional legislative responsibility of this institution, the National Assembly, as in the case of Nigeria, must be condemned in entirety. This was not the first time this House was misrepresented, sometimes on the basis of individual presentations on the floor of this House. Sometimes it has gone to the level even of decisions and resolutions taken and decided by the chair in the capacity of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Speaker, we must have to collectively condemn these actions, not only call on such baseless allegations to continue to stop them, not only to call on them to stop it. Mr. Speaker, I want to rise and also indulge the understanding of honorable members on this floor that we must go beyond verbal condemnation. This is democracy. We have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We also have our own rules that govern our activities in the floor of the House of Representatives. These are what we call the rules of the games. And I believe the fourth estate of the realm, the media, which I said I proudly belong, no, they cannot be exceptional as far getting to comply with these set down rules. Yellow journalism, petty journalism, discrediting journalism by mispresenting institutional positions is not something that is left out within the context and the context of our laws in the land.
I rise to move that the House do receive the report of the Committee on Health Institutions on a bill for an act to amend the Orthopedic Hospitals Management Board Act Cap 010, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for the establishment of Federal Orthopedic Hospital Azare in Borno State and for related matters. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Honorable Adodogwa remains my name. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I represent the people of Dogwa, Tudunwada Federal Constituency. Honorable members, I am from Kano State. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I rise as directed by the Speaker to move that a bill for an act to establish National Agricultural Development Fund for the purpose of providing funding and agricultural development in Nigeria and for related matters, HB 1319, be taken the third time on the floor of this important honorable House. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I so move. Deputy. On the second item on the orders of the day, Mr. Speaker, I will assume you are today seated there 2 in 1. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila, who unavoidably has to travel this morning, and your humble self, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Reps, wearing 2 caps on one head. Distinguished honorable members, Mr. Speaker, I need your attention. Distinguished honorable members and my boss, the Speaker, I would like to share with you a very important and good news that today God Almighty, in His wisdom and powers, has granted victory to the APC in Kano State, and the structure of the party is now back into their rightful hands. I'm sure if the Speaker was here, he would have observed a lot of excitement, happiness on my face. Even in his absence, I will have to put on record that my caucus members of Kano, my other good members of the APC caucus on the House of Representatives, will be glad to know and hear that the Court of Appeal today granted judgment in favor of the APC, the popular APC in Kano State. Honorable Sergius, this is a good information for you, and I thank God. I will also thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us this success and victory at the Court of Appeal this morning. Mr. Speaker, I therefore move ahead to move that a bill for an act to establish Federal College of Education, Birniwa, Jigawa State to provide for full-time course, teaching instructions, and training in technology, applied sciences, arts and social sciences, humanities, and management, and for related matters, HB 383 be taken the third time. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, Honorable Fulata, the Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, with due respect, this very motion, all important motion, is hereby moved to be taken for the third time. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for that wonderful response. And I hope you will urge the others on the other side to join hand with the new leadership and make APC a great party in the state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable members. Before I take on the next item, Mr. Speaker, may I seek your leave and the leave of the House to take item 3 and 4 concurrently, Mr. Speaker and honorable members.
Wait.
In order to save our legislative time. Mr. Speaker, thank you for your good approval. I rise to move that a bill for an act to repeal the Federal Capital Territory Abuja Area Codes Act 2010 and enact the Federal Capital Territory Abuja Area Codes Bill to, among other things, expand the jurisdiction of the area courts to entertain both civil and criminal matters, and for related matters, HB 67 be taken the third time. Mr. Speaker, I also move that a bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs Act Cap Laws of Nigeria 113, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and enact the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs Bill to broaden the scope and functions of the Nigerian Institute of Institutional Affairs and more value to foreign missions, add more value to foreign missions, and provide for the power to conduct courses of instructions and learning, and to create an academic board to award postgraduate diplomas, PGD, and master's degrees in international relations, diplomatic practice, and for related matters, HB 1279 be taken the third time. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I move these two bills concurrently for the third reading.
Reading of a bill for an act to amend the Violence Against People's Prohibition Act 2015 to prohibit discrimination against widows and all forms of repressive and degrading widow practices, and to make provision for the definition of the offense of image-based sexual abuse under the Act, and make provision for penalty for offense of image-based sexual abuse and for related matters. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, I remain Honourable Adejo Adeogun, representing the people of Akoko South-West Federal Constituency from Ondo State. Right Honourable Speaker, Honourable colleagues, I am pleased to lead the debate on this bill, which seeks to amend the Violence Against Persons Act of 2015. This bill proposes to amend 6 sections of the Violence Against Persons Act to make provisions to safeguard widows from violent and evil customary practices, denial of property rights, rape, forced marriages, and all other dehumanizing acts that undermine the dignity of the widow. The amendments sought are geared towards achieving the following. 1. Define what constitutes harmful and degrading widow practices. 2. Define what constitutes the rights of widows under the Act. 3. Prescribe penalties for infractions against the Act. 4. Reserving the 23rd day of May of every year as a national day for the prohibition of discrimination against widows, women, and girls. This is to bring the problem of discrimination against widows to national attention. 5. Saddle the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons and Other Related Matters, NAPTIP, with the responsibility of administering the provisions of this bill and organizing events to commemorate the National Day for the Prohibition of Discrimination Against Widows, Women, and Girls, as established under Section 12 of this bill. Honourable Speaker, dear colleagues, death is inevitable. We have no control over it whatsoever. Sadly, in several parts of Nigeria, widows are made to pay heavy penalties for the painful departure of husbands that they loved and shared their lives with. They are stigmatized, isolated, treated like destitutes, and sometimes made to shave their hair. They are criminalized because even when a man dies at the age of 100, sometimes their widows are treated like murderers because the man who has attained the right age of 100 years dies. Unfortunately, most of these people are denied, widows are denied access to properties, in some cases denied access to their own children for reasons that have no place under any Nigerian law. Widowhood is not a choice. Widows are victims of the inevitability of death. So, Why does our society criminalize the unfortunate incident of widowhood? Why are widows denied the right to mourn in peace? Why is the trauma of their loss met with more trauma rather than solace? Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues, I believe that we have a duty to right this wrong. These are our mothers, sisters, aunties, friends, colleagues, and they deserve our protection. This bill, when passed, will be recorded in history as one of the most important legislation passed by this ninth assembly. We will have succeeded in metaphorically giving to the widows in our nation what could be described as the widow's mite. I wish to therefore plead with honorable members of this very honorable House to support that this bill to prohibit discrimination and unwholesome practices against widows be read a second time.
Widows are so much valued. My mother, I want to give a typical example, was a widow. My father died while I was just at the age of 2 months. But she got the best of treatment and I got the best of treatment. It needs to address certain evils within some segment of society. I do not think it's all part of society. Thank you. The question now is that the bill be read second time. Those in favor say aye. Against say nay. That's have it. Clerk is invited to read the long title of the bill.
The need to establish an ultra-modern museum of national unity in Abuja. That the House notes that museums are repositories of history, art, and practices of a people in a way that the future generation remains in touch with their ancestry, while the museum becomes a focal point of tourism. Also knows that Nigeria has a rich endowment of historical facts, artifacts, and monuments, which becomes imperative to explore a way that will draw the interest of the international community. Cognizance that a central ultra-modern facility with a capacity to hold over 250 cultural and ethnic heritage of the country will preserve identities and histories of Nigeria, promote tourism, and contribute to much needed foreign direct investment in the country. Also cognizance that the museum, when established, will serve as a repository for research and development, as well as provide a safe place to preserve priceless artifacts being returned to the country from across the globe. Aware that the facility will provide for other businesses to thrive and cater for tourists and other visitors, as well as other services. Therefore, the House resolves to mandate the Committees on Culture and Tourism and the Federal Capital Territory to liaise with the relevant government agencies with a view to establishing an ultra-modern Museum of National Unity in Abuja and report back within 4 weeks for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Maybe before I go to look for a seconder, go back now again, come back. You will have just come up with a bill and it will have suited and saved our legislative time. Yes, sir.
Right Honourable Speaker, I do was take it to the committees involved, get the necessary facts. There are so many things we need to get, and we'll put it into the bill.
Chidoka, you are an experienced legislator.
I know, sir.
So, and I want to leverage on that your experience.
Absolutely.
To do the writing.
Yes, sir.
And by that, I will wish you to step down so that you go and do the needful. Even if you put a question, my brother or Maguno will use a language from the law firm to say it's like a... You are in support, Maguno?
Honorable Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I wholeheartedly concur with the submissions made by you that it should come by way of a bill, because even if it is established by an executive fiat, definitely there has to be a law to back it. So in as much as I am supporting it, Honorable Chidoka, I implore you to toe the argument of the Speaker so that you come by way of a bill, so that it can be consummated wholly. It's better, so that it will be consummated wholly.
Thank you, Barrister Amateur Momono.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. This is very important, as you've noted, and as he has also observed, so we can go back and bring a proper establishment bill. There's a reason I wanted to put it this way, but by your more experience, of course, we'll put it in bill, and
Oh, yeah, into this house for the third time, so you are very experienced.
I know, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chidoka. Chidoka, thank you for accepting to be guided by the House, please.
No problem.
Take your seat.
Motion step down by the leader of the House for further input.
I'm from Jigawa State. I represent Malamudori Kaugama Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I raised to move a motion for a call on the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to urgently deploy physical enumerators and other assistance to conduct new voter registration across all federal constituencies. Mr. Speaker, the House notes that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, was established to, among other things, organize election in Nigeria, as well as put all necessary processes in place for the successful conduct of election in Nigeria. The House also notes that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is carrying out one of its constitutional duties, has put in place the machinery for the visual continuous voters registration, CVR, which has been ongoing. The concern that my constituency, Malamudori Kaugama Federal Constituency, and many other federal constituencies have been placed at disadvantaged position due to the non-availability of registered voters, centers, and officials, inadequate power supply, insufficient official tools and equipment, as well as inadequate enlightenment program. The effect of this are no figure recorded within the constituencies. Worried that if the voter registration exercise is concluded without addressing the above-mentioned challenges, thousands of potential voters in Nigeria will be disemphasized during the forthcoming election. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, concern is that given current realities in the constituencies, INEC may need to engage in both physical and visual processes by introducing physical enumerators to make up for the lapses in the ongoing registration exercise. Resolved, urge the Independent National Electoral Commission to take immediate steps to conduct physical registration throughout the Federation. 2. Mandate the Committee on Electoral Matters to ensure compliance. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, I so move. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I represent Panshinkanke Kanam Federal Constituency. I'm from Plateau State. Mr. Speaker, this is one of the best motions I have had in my lifetime in this hallowed chamber. Best because it's the motion that seeks to ensure that the people of Nigeria are not suffocated of their power to vote and be voted for. Mr. Speaker, it's a very short motion, but very rich at the same time. Rich in the sense that to some of us, Mr. Speaker, that represent rural constituencies, we will know the importance and value of this motion. But to others, Mr. Speaker, that represent metropolitan constituencies, they may not understand well how important this motion is to some of us. Mr. Speaker,
are they here? Are they here, the multiple representatives? Are they here?
They are not here, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
They are not here, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I represent a constituency that not up to 10% have access to telephone, not up to 10% have access to social media, not up to 10%, Mr. Speaker, have access to what INEC are using now to do the continuous voters registration. Mr. Speaker, until and unless the physical enumerators like it is done in the past, INEC are advised or compelled, in other words, to ensure that they employ ad hoc staff to go the four angles of Nigeria and ensure that they have captured citizens of this country who are eligible, who is not a privilege for them to participate in the forthcoming election. Within the 2019 to this moment, Mr. Speaker, so many Nigerians have reached the age of 18 years where they have the right, not the privilege, to participate in choosing leaders that will protect them, in choosing leaders that will speak for them, in choosing leaders that will provide dividend of democracy at their doorstep.
The federal constituency of Borno State. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, this motion is a fun Nigerian motion. It's not a motion that is only limited to Honorable Maki's constituency. It's a fun Nigerian motion in the sense that, for example, in the northeastern part of the country, where telecommunication facilities has been completely destroyed, occasioned by the Boko Haram insurgency, it is very difficult through the use of technology to register Nigerians to exercise their right of franchise to vote and to be voted for.
Mr. Speaker, I want to lend my voice in support of this very important motion moved by Honorable Maki, in the sense that it is important that INEC, beyond physical or whatever means that is proposed here, should provide more materials. Mr. Speaker, in all the constituencies and units, they lack the laptops and materials to even effect the registration. So many people are unable to register because they don't even have what they need. Sometimes you get to a local government INEC office, they may have just 1 or 2 laptops to take care of maybe up to 250 units. And they are not able to do this. And people sit there every day waiting and nothing happens. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we need to expand this beyond physical movement of people. They must be provided with additional laptops and materials and more personnel. They should employ more people and more personnel and deploy them into rural communities to be able to register more Nigerians, because so many people are not registered. Even in the new units that have been created, Mr. Speaker, some of those units, they are unable to populate, transfer people to where they ought to be and get them on the database of INEC. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to join in saying that this is truly a Nigerian motion, and therefore I urge all my colleagues and everyone to support this motion, and I urge INEC, when this eventually comes, to take necessary steps to make sure that what Nigerians want happens. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
It's a pan-Nigeria motion, and it's coming at a very good time when the Independent National Electoral Commission has recently just introduced new polling units. My contribution would be for INEC to actually embark on more robust awareness and advocacy in the new polling units, and deploy alternative and fast data facilities to ensure that the registration process is seamless and is easier.
Roland Igbakba. I represent Ethiopia East, Ethiopia West, and by the special grace of God, we are from Delta State. Mr. Speaker, from my introduction, you know that I represent 2 local governments. And the 2 local governments have two registration points. So far, as leaders and as representatives, we are made, after an extended meeting with INEC, we have to go get computers. You know, this registration is done in 2 phases. First, you have to do the registration before you go to INEC for the physical data capture. And Mr. Speaker, after going through this rigor, to get the people to INEC, you have to charter vehicles from time to time. And that is not supposed to be the responsibilities of leaders and people that are supposed to come and vote. And these are the things that bring about voters' apathy. The people in the village does not know the ones that you have done for. Even when you get to INEC, most times they don't have the facility to register these people. You charter a vehicle, take people to INEC center because it's just one. You see people coming from various units, various wards, and there's nothing to do. So it is timely, and I want to thank my colleague for bringing this motion,
let us tell INEC to decentralize the registration so that everybody, every nooks and cranny, units, if not wards, if we can't get units, let us get to wards so that people can actually get to the vote, registration point on time and get people registered.
And I'm from Edo State. Mr. Speaker, first let me appreciate my colleague, Honorable Maki, for this all-important motion that borders on registering Nigerians and as a means to avoid Nigerians that have come of age from being disenfranchised. However, Mr. Speaker, I forwarded an amendment to this motion. It's not an amendment that has to do with the existing resolution, but an add-on to this resolution. Mr. Speaker, every colleague of mine that has spoken here today has spoken in favor of this motion because strengthening the electoral process is very key to us as a nation and as voice of the people and our constituents. Mr. Speaker, after you register people and you now introduce voting points, and these voting points are now put at various junctions where adequate security is not guaranteed, Mr. Speaker, INEC must be made to understand that it might be effort in futility. Mr. Speaker, if you have primary schools that are fenced round and you want to introduce voting points, you would rather extend voting points within those schools that are secured. But Mr. Speaker, like in my constituency, while thanking INEC for introducing voting points, but when you put a voting point at a major junction where the vendor sells newspaper, or at another junction where barbecue and suya is being made, it's unfortunate that on election day, Mr. Speaker, hoodlums can easily drive by and just shoot gun to the air, and all those votes will be wasted. So, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable Victor Mela Danzaria, I represent the people of Balanga Billi Referral Constituency. Your Excellency, I'm from Gombe State. Your Excellency, first, I want to thank Honorable Maki for this good job. This is a national issue, and it's so important to all Nigerians. Nigerians have changed from money politics to a better politicking. And for us to produce a better politicking in this country and the process, every Nigerian at a certain age should be given the opportunity for that. Mr. Speaker, this is an important motion, and I would like to add, because of its importance at this time of good governance and good people to govern Nigeria, I feel and I think the National Orientation Agency should be given an opportunity to sensitize Nigerians very well on this issue of voting registration.
The reason I want to add to the previous speakers' cases presented is you all aware that INEC sometimes ago last year increased the voting points across the country, but there was no proper sensitization and information, education on those voting points. So this makes it very necessary and important to have the physical registration so as to allow the people in various voting points really identify where they are to register and to vote. We all know the immediate past elections, it was being granted that so many voting points recorded no voting. And I'm quite sure it was this lack of information, sensitization, and education that made it impossible for some people, some voters to locate their own voting points. So by having this physical registration, I'm definitely sure those who did not have proper information as to where the new centers are will now identify their centers. Thank you very much.
as we're all aware, and as we've said here on the floor of the House, the right to vote and be voted for is the right of every Nigerian. Any action taken by INEC is supposed to enforce these rights and not deprive Nigerians of accessing this very basic right. Unfortunately, the whole concept of online registration has gone wrong. It has further disenfranchised many rural Nigerians rather than enfranchising them. The reason being, number one, like we've said in the rural areas, in the northeast and many areas, poor access to network. And Mr. Speaker, just like we've said, what has made it even more cumbersome is that usually there's one, after you are captured, after you do your online registration, which in some areas you cannot even access the telecommunication systems, then you have to go to one point, like one headquarters of INEC, everybody in that constituency. How will those people transport themselves? How will they get there and register themselves? It has made it difficult. So many people prefer to stay home or go about their normal activities. Mr. Speaker, the big concern here is that there's a time frame INEC has put in for registration. And my amendment is that INEC extend the time frame for voters' registration, because online registration alone is not capturing most Nigerians. By this time last year, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the statistics of last year and the statistics of this year, you'll find out that it's almost more than 10 times more people were registered manually by this time last year. So online registration hasn't helped us. So we need to not only ensure that we mix both physical, manual, and online at the same time, which means INEC going physically to all the voting centers and make sure that there's time enough. The sad thing about it is INEC has a policy that any center that doesn't register up to a minimum amount will be closed down, any new voting points. I don't think this is a policy that is fair on Nigerians.
For the purposes of ownership, because I've seen members from the far south, I've seen members from the southwest, I've seen members from the north central, I have seen members from the southeast, I have seen members from the northeast, and indeed the motion is a northwest-based motion. I rise to concur with Honorable Monguno, the Chief Whip of the House, that this motion is no longer a local motion. It's now a Nigerian motion. It is a motion for this House, and this House must own it up. And that is just what I'm doing on behalf of the leadership and members of this House, that this motion is our own motion. Mr. Speaker, I would like to commend him, for he has brought a very popular motion, a motion that definitely and very precisely speaks to our electoral procedures, a motion that is quite timely at the moment when this practice is being carried out by INEC. Mr. Speaker, a motion which has just come up immediately after we have passed the Electoral Act. Honorable members, distinguished colleagues, Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say without any fear of contradiction that this motion has summed all our opinions, and on behalf of the people of the good people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that we represent.
Please, hear me. No, it's not about spoken. He have written officially, and so the procedure stipulates that we must take it. Honorable Yema.
Environment. Instead of the present locations at roadside junctions, because on election day these votes cannot be secured. So when they are introducing new voting points, they must be within secured environment, like the normal schools that carry the model voting points.
The people of the amendment say aye. Against any, that's have it. Benila, the amendment or amendments.
The second amendment is that the voting points not be turned down, not be closed down, to urge INEC not to adopt a policy that will close down voting points or centers due to low registration figures. And I think the first one adds that INEC reports to the Committee on Electoral Matters monthly on the figures that have been obtained in the voters' registration process. Thank you. So moved.
Against any, that's the most powerful leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Import and the importance of the motion, and of course the need for our people to actually be captured in the electoral roll, that I move for an amendment that where in paragraph 3 the motion reads as Malamadori Kaugama federal constituencies will now be deleted and now read in all the insert all the 360 federal constituencies of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, something of that nature. That instead of Malamadori Kaugama federal constituency, the motion or that paragraph should now read in all the federal constituencies of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you.
Honorable Maki, we are grateful for this intervention.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Amendment, sorry. Against say nay. The ayes have it. The last amendment is from Honorable Akinjo. You have another one?
Distinguished colleague, my name is Kolade V. Akinjo, Esquire, Ilaje of the Federal Constituency, and Ilajema from Ondo State. Mr. Speaker, my own amendment is about the voters card, ensuring that when people are registered, there is also a corresponding voters card available and distributed to them. So I amend that INEC ensure that the new registrants are provided with their voters card on or before the general election. That's my amendment, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
For the amendment, say aye. Against say nay. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished honorable members, Ibrahim Ayopole Isiaka, Ifo Eweko Federal Constituency. I'm from Ogo State, Mr. Speaker. Further amendment to what have been submitted so far, it's to increase the efficiency of all the INEC staff across the nation. I'm amending that INEC to deploy minimum basic tools, equipment, and machines required in all the 774 local governments across the nation, and consequently, the Committee on Electoral Matters to request for audit reports and compliance to this effect. I so move, Mr. Speaker, sir.
I don't want you to what the leader of the House. The leader of the House said across the federal constituencies. And if you are now asking for deployment in local government, the serious person can now go to local government headquarters and then still having the repeat of what we are experiencing instead of solving the problem. I thought the coverage of the federal constituencies has given aptly to cover all wards, including units.
Honorable Isiaka, please be guided and take your seat.
And adopted is on the area of machines for this registration. So it goes this way because at the moment, it is only one machine per local government. And we are talking of sensitization. Therefore, it is to urge INEC to increase the registration machines to match the level of sensitization on voters' registration. As it
those Akinjo, those in favor of the amendment say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. The 12th order of the day is motion on need to provide. Sorry, the 11th order of the day is motion on need to rehabilitate the collapsed Kanke Langtang Road standing in the north Honorable Ben Lard. Honorable Ben Lard is invited to move the motion.
The House notes that roads are critical to the economic development of any nation. It enhances social benefits by providing access to employment, social, health, and education services. It also notes that Kanke Langtang Road, which was constructed in 1979, has collapsed, thus slowing down development in the surrounding communities. Mr. Speaker, this notion is aware that according to statistics by the Federal Road Safety Commission, FRSC, between 2015 and 2019, there were 12,027 road accidents, of which 5,400 persons died, while the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics stated that there were 11,363 road crashes with 5,000 deaths in 2017. The numbers continue to be high every year. This motion is concerned that Kankia-Langtang Road in Plateau State has degenerated to such a deplorable state that plying the road has become extremely hazardous, and the loss of lives continue unabated due to poor road maintenance in the country. This motion is worried about the reoccurring accidents due to the deplorable state of the road, thus frustrating travelers and exposing them to the risk of being robbed or kidnapped. This motion is also worried that if the road is not urgently rehabilitated, transportation, which is one of the major drivers of economic growth, will become uncompletely bearable, therefore grinding the economic activities of the people in that area. This motion prays that the House resolve to, number one, urge FEMA to take urgent steps to rehabilitate the Kankia-Langtang Road in Plateau State. This motion also seeks to mandate the Committee on FEMA to ensure compliance. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Amendment is coming on the component of the prayer where the mover said that we urge FEMA to respond promptly to the need for the reconstruction of this bridge. Mr. Speaker, in order to strengthen that component of the motion, and in the spirit of the Kankia-Langtang solidarity, I would like to join the office of the Deputy Speaker also to be charged along with FEMA to make sure that this bridge is constructed.
I'm from Jigawa State, the New World. I represent Maramuru Kaugama Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, my honorable colleagues, my amendment is to add number 3, that they should urge Federal Road Maintenance Agency FEMA to also visit Maramuru town, that is Tumballe, that have the similar problem. So yes, it's an amendment now.
This is directory. This is directory.
It's not directive.
I remain Honorable Emeka Chinedu. I represent the good people of Ayazun Bisesi in the Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I am from Imo State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move a motion on the need to provide body-worn cameras for security operatives in the country and create a situation room. The House notes that security of lives and properties of citizens is the primary responsibility of government. The House also notes that security agencies have been exploring solutions to mitigate the growing insecurity in the country, especially considering the lack of adherence to rules of engagement on the part of security operatives on duty. The House is also aware that body camera is a wearable audio-visual or photographic system which integrates with in-car video and used to record events involving law enforcement officers in order to improve transparency and accountability of law enforcement agencies. The House is therefore concerned about all allegations of harassment, extortion, and extrajudicial killings of citizens by security operatives, which often result in reprisal and uprising by the citizen. The House is therefore convinced that the security operatives, who often express litigious scrutiny over their conduct in the discharge of their duties, ought to wear body cameras in order to have picture and video evidence of their activities. The House is cognizant that the body cameras will keep the security operative in check, considering the massive allegation of human rights violation by security operatives and lack of evidence. The House is also cognizant that the introduction of body cameras will not only douse tension and promote trust and professionalism among the security agencies, but will institutionalize the rules of engagement to foster a harmonious relationship between security operative and its citizenry. Therefore, the House resolved: 1. Urge the government to provide body cameras for all security operatives on duty across the country. 2. mandate the Committee on Police Affairs and Army and National Security and Intelligence to ensure compliance. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Accusations are made about, I'm not in concurrence because I don't know, but I'm just saying among the things that were discussed today on national, as a matter of national discuss, how security agents, chiefs are taking out money, leaving people hungry. Somebody from NDLA, former DG, was the one who was giving that kind of thing. So for us to make our system good, it's good to lay out the fundamentals of what a normal system should be, and then we follow with other question of funding. That's what I would urge us to do. But we'll take the First Amendment.
Prayer number 2. I believe that there was special mention of Army and Police, which you believe, yes. But I want to crave the addition of Customs, because of recent, Customs have been found to be very reckless in their activities. So Customs should be added to Army and Police. Thank you.
I think it's good we look right and be done in the right way. Thank you. So, seconder for inclusion against any, that's habit. Those in favor of the motion as amended say aye. Against any, that's habit. Respected colleagues, the 13th order of the day is a motion on
the good people of Ahajibima, Oguta, Oru, West Federal Constituency of Imo State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move the motion on call to assess the economic impact, compensation, and financing remediation program for oil spill ravaged communities of Ahajibima, Oguta of Imo State and Niger Delta area of Nigeria. The House knows that crude oil has been a recurrent issue in Nigeria, and despite efforts to curtail its prevalence, stakeholders and agencies have not made concerted efforts to ensure that the legal instruments and policies are strictly adhered to by the exploration entities. Also notes that due to the geographical peculiarities of Ahajibima, Oguta local government area, as well as Niger Delta areas of Nigeria, the predominant occupations among the indigenous peoples are farming and fishing. Concerned that oil spill in the host communities are resulted in pollution of rivers and low yield to farmers due to poor soil quality, a resultant effect of oil spill on their lands. Also concerned that the spills have caused diseases, psychological trauma and stress, occasional displacement, increased income, and untold hardship for the people of Ahajibima, Oguta communities in Imo State. Cognizant of the need for oil exploration entities to be proactive in addressing the problems created by oil spill, as well adequate compensations to impacted communities. Also, cognizant of the need for a remediation program which should be jointly financed by oil companies and the federal government to alleviate the sufferings of the people in the affected communities, resolves to 1. Urge the federal government to design a workable compensation template for indigenous of the communities affected by oil spill in Ohajima, Oguta, local government area of Imo State, and other oil producing communities across the country. 2.